needed. We have a peaceful ending to a very back-and-forth game one. And there you go. Well, Vidit, I'll see you in just a few moments. Haha, let's go. When my son says, haha, let's go, I say, get in the car and be quiet, okay? If you want to hop on the stream, you don't have to be quiet, but let's do it. Okay. Now we're back in the Night Orb. Now, this is going to be an interesting storyline to this match. Is Wei Yi going to challenge Maxime's Night Orb? If we back up and analyze, let's remind you, everybody, that Maxime Vachier Lagrave is known as the world's leading expert in the sharpest Sicilian, and that is defined as the move A6. This is a Night Orb Sicilian, and he knows how to use it. The point of A6, obviously, both accelerated attacks on the queen side, and usually it supports a move like E5, and the B5 square is not accessible. Just the very, very basic principles. We get E5, the knight retreats. This line with the fianchetto here on the king side is one of the more positional approaches. White wants to eventually use the D5 square and potentially transition into a big pawn storm on the queen side, and I'll actually show that that's happening on the board right now as we speak, right? This knight comes to D5, you want to support it. You're positionally saying, yes, you gain some time with E5, but that might be a pawn move you wish you could move backward if you end up giving me full control over the light squares and be positionally worse to go with it. But black has the typical Sicilian counterplay, right? Accelerated compensation on the queen side, starting with an open C-file, constant threats to disrupt that grip on the center. And when that happens, things like E4 and D5 come under target. So, rook to C8 played. Maybe Wei Yi now thinking, hey, did I just really go into a Night Orb against Maxime Vachier Lagrave? Like, what was I thinking with that? I don't even know. But I'm gonna figure out what to do now. The rook comes to C8. What are the right plans here for white? Queen D3 is a candidate move. This move overprotects things like E4 and D5, connects the rooks, and then usually prepares A4. But actually, as I look at it in this position now, I'm not surprised A4 was played. The fact that this knight is already on D5 guarding B4 means that A4 can't be met by a strike like this, right? White will just take the pawn happily. And that's kind of key, because one of the ways that white tries to punish the Night Orb is to make those pawns push even further, right? As this structure opens up, A6 is an obvious target as soon as the A-file is open for business. And white also has the two-pawn majority advantage, which if you let these pawns get where they want to be, it'll be things like C4 and B4 and a big center to go with the bishop pair. But Maxime knows this line well. You don't just give up your key light squared bishop and weaken A6 unless you have a direct follow-up. I'm going to guess the main idea is that if queen takes, we have rook takes C2. And if pawn takes, a couple things. One of them being that you've actually changed the pawn structure in a typical way to give yourself an attack on the king side here. You also have queen to C7 immediately if you want to hit C2, slide to B7, hit B2, and then eventually go back for the idea I've been talking about. It's one of the reasons you take on D5 to change that structure, is so that F5 is eventually an effective idea. We see that Maxime immediately responded with the move A5. That's the way he chooses to defend the pawn. Wei Yi plays the move C3. And I'm guessing F5 comes soon? No. Knight B6. Oh, that's a nice tactic. If you take A5, we have knight C4. A little bit of a fork. Do a little dance. Make a little fork. Get down tonight. And you don't want to part with the dark square bishop. Maxime just has such a good feel for these positions. It's seriously fascinating, because I feel like I would take so much time before making a choice to give up my light square bishop here. Kind of a catalyst, if you will, to the entire structure. But he does it so quickly and just knows that the dynamics here are going to be okay for him. Because if you can't take A5, black is going to play A4 next. And then black is kind of holding on to everything on the queen side. Along with moves like knight C4. Just, oh, wow, Wei Yi's calling his bluff. Maxime gave a little bit of a Hikaru Nakamura number 13 shrug there. Not quite the full look up at the ceiling, but a bit of a head tilt. He gets knight C4. As we said, the fork commences. He wants the pawn, though. Impressive. Wei Yi is getting greedy. I appreciate your username, Dr. Gingivitis. First of all, let's fight gingivitis together, right? I assume that's why you have that username. Not to troll, but to be a pillar of light. Thanks for being here. Also, appreciate the Chess TV chat. So many of our regulars. We got Max. We got Steffi. Typewriter. I call them the OGs of the Chess TV chat before the emotes were even cool to use on Chess TV. Those peeps were hanging out, being strong. So, all right, Rook B8 is played. Black wants to get happy on the B file before just settling on the opposite bishop ending here. Wow, look at this. I'm being visited by an angel with coffee. Thank you, sir. I think he feels bad for me today. I'm flying solo. He's like, yeah, welcome to my world, Danny. All the work I do is solo. Okay? Got everything I could ever need here, including some Arizona tea, which is light and refreshing. All right. Okay, Maxime plays Rook B8, Queen B3, and he's going to continue to bring the pressure on the B file with Queen C7. He wants to exchange and then bring another rook into the game. Yeah, the product placement. If only we got paid for product placement. That's why nobody sponsors our shows. They're like, where do you guys already get all the free product placement we could ever ask for? So, you know. All right, he eventually exchanges. He's going after E3. The thing about the position for Black is despite being down a pawn, if you're evaluating it objectively as far as Black's goals at the highest level of chess, Black's probably just in totally fine shape to hold a draw in this game. So again, the point is, as much as we talked about the Najdorf being Maxime's expertise, remember, when 2750s go at it, Black isn't usually more ambitious than thinking he should get a draw with his approach. And so if this is one that he has a theoretically kind of prepared idea that he knows he can go for this, even with the fork that only led to an opposite code bishop ending, I'm going to guess that Maxime still feels like he's in plenty good shape to hold this position, not just because he's relaxing there, probably trying to work out that giant chess injury that occurred for him when I almost beat him a couple weeks ago in St. Louis. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, H5, H4. You can relocate the bishop to C5 where it sits pretty. And you have to look out. I mean, at some point, the dark squares on the king side could be weak, right? I'm not just thinking of some sort of, fantasy of a checkmate attack where the queen and bishop work together. But even in an endgame, these pawns stuck on these squares could be targets. So you got to watch out for that. Rook A6. Is he just laughing in the face of danger in terms of Rook B5 and Rook B8? I guess he was probably saying something like, you trade in the end of these lines, you may regret it, right? So King G7, Bishop F1. I don't know how ambitious Black can be here, right? If Black starts to do things like F5, the open 7th rank likely backfires. Moves like Rook C6 are coming. So he finally trades on B5. I'm still guessing Rook B8 comes. Now the B2 pawn falls with check. Maxime feeling it, feeling the dance, feeling the moves. Oh, and he sees Bishop C1. Not sure Wei Yi saw this idea. If he plays B4, C3 falls. So he goes for it. What's he saying? He's saying, you show me mine, I show you yours. Rook to C6 intermezzo. He's going to eventually take on D6. The problem is B4 falls, and with it comes the second rank. Yeah, Wei Yi's trying to bail out now. Queen D3 is a bailout move. He's saying, I want the endgame now. I'm nervous. Okay, bishop takes A3, bishop G2, but now Black can play Rook B2, okay, or Rook B3. Both moves unleash the bishop. That was the point, to guard D6. He can put the bishop on C5, try to spy squares like F2, and don't... Oh my gosh, and he... Wait, did Leve just resign there? I have no idea. I'm just going to back up and take a look. He resigned in the position. Is it because he just knew he was going to get flagged? Was he just frustrated with the fact that he went from up a pawn to down a pawn? I mean, if you look at the opposite bishop ending, Black holds all the cards, right, with a dominant rook and bishop with more targets to come. But okay, resigning is another order, though. Resigning is a whole nother level of being frustrated, right? That's my level of depression, the kind you seek help for. So I don't even know what's going on with him resigning this quickly. F5 and F4 is coming for Black, and so make no mistake, I think that Black is better. But okay, resigning is another order, though. Resigning is a whole nother level of being frustrated, right? That's my level of depression, the kind you seek help for. So I don't even know what's going on with him resigning this quickly. F5 and F4 but I'm a little shocked by that as we see the next game rolling. Maxime, not so shocked. He's, yeah, sometimes you get real on this show, especially when Dan flies solo. That's why we keep him away from those shows. So yeah, we have a Sicilian again. This time E4 from Maxime. Not quite the Knight Orf. I wonder what Maxime's strength would be if he ever fully focused on chess. I mean, has this guy stopped fidgeting since we went live, everyone? I'm going to talk to him about it afterwards. Get ready for a fun interview because Maxime talks way too much trash for his own good. All right. Well, we've got a Sicilian here. And we'll see how Wei Yi wants to take an approach to a typical Alapin structure where white tries to get the center and keep it. And what we mean by that, I talk about this a lot. And if you're ever looking for these types of events to maybe be suggestions for you in terms of how to map your own repertoire, I know my goal is often to just try to lecture on what I think could be educational for the viewer. Sorry, I'm a teacher at heart, but it really is true that every one of these approaches they take is sound and played for a reason. And so if you're looking for suggestions and maybe you don't like the sharpest variations of the open Sicilians that occur with things like d4, you see a lot of these players playing the anti-Sicilians now. We've seen bishop b5 twice here today by Maxime, but here we have a slightly different approach from Wei Yi, knight d7 instead of the move bishop d7 that was played in game 1. And that leads to an Alapin structure with c3, where what white's saying is, look, yeah, I want d4, and I want to have more control over this critical square, but I also don't want to give you the 2 pawns versus 1, a long-term positional advantage. So instead, I play c3 to make sure that when I do get d4, I'm going to take back with the pawn and be super happy here. So bishop to d3 is retreated with the sole purpose of getting that big center before you get d4. Eventually, it happens. And this is actually an instructive point, too, because if white achieves this goal, excuse me, of the big center, it's usually not in black's interest to take it, because that frees up the c3 square for the knight and then allows the big center to continue to be used. So if the Alapin, let's say, philosophy is executed, often black will just maintain the tension rather than capture, which is what he does here, and only take after a move like knight b to d2, because once the knight is no longer threatening to take the most logical development square, at that point you can trade and try to be a little more active in the center, because you're not worried about white having this sort of dream position you teach your students about, right? Knight f1, and again, on that note, because Maxime lacks the knight on the natural square, look what Wei Yi's doing. He's able to strike with d5 and then play the knight into e4, something that happens, again, because white lacks this knight on c3. So, good stuff. Bishop d3 played by Maxime. I think it's a structure that still has a tiny edge for white, just based on a space advantage and a bad French bishop. And it's one of those things where just suddenly you're analyzing and a man appears next to you, then you look for help, and you've been saved, and I'm not even sure he can hear me. Let's just keep talking as if he's not here. And Vida Gujarati will be joining us in just a moment, live from his beehive honeycomb behind him. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But, all right, so he plays f5 played by Wei Yi. That makes sense, right? Again, I like the whole approach here from Wei Yi just as far as a lecture on executing based on what your opponent gives you, right? Take what they give you. He was dealing with the big Alapin center here and only took on d4 once that knight couldn't take the most active square. Once that knight was no longer in position to guard the most critical squares, he changes the structure by directly challenging the light squares in the center with d5. And just like that, now he's going to re-support the strength with e5, and just like that, I think I have a new co-host next to me. Vidit, can you hear me? Vidit, is this a joke? Vidit? Good talk, buddy. Good talk. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey, there you are. What's up, dude?
Hi. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Great to have you with me. I wasn't sure. Did you troll me there? Could you hear me the whole time?
No, I did not. I just had my mic as my speaker, which was really lame.
Got it. That's right. Well, first of all, thanks for being here, man. I mean, not very often you see a Super Grandmaster in Twitch chat and invite them on your show, and they say, "Okay."
I'm always ready to cover Eric's mess, you know.
Yeah. Hey, we need it. Someone's got to cover up for Eric, right? I mean, you know, that's usually a Mon's full-time job, but you're here filling in. Anyway, so we just had a first win by Maxime, and now we've got what was an Alapin kind of Rosalimo Sicilian turned, I think, a little bit wrong. I feel like Wei Yi's about to get some compensation in the form of an attack on the king side, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe H2 and F2 aren't as weak as I think they are. What do you see when you take a look?
Wait, let me just make sure that I'm in the right position.
Okay.
So is it Queen B3 check right now?